So it's June and we've got a rate decrease, which we've heard plenty about the last couple of days. We'll get to that in a moment. But spring market, what have you seen so far, Larry?
Well, March, like we talked about last month, March came in strong. We had a good start to it. Bottom fell out of it in April, kind of went retracted backwards again. It's like people anticipated there was a rate increase or decrease coming. They ran out there with that, FOMO, fear of missing out, wanted to get a place before the crowd started hitting the market, never materialized, and everything slowed down. So I found April was slow, just looking back through some numbers and whatnot. And just the overall sense of the market, I found May to be slower than anticipated. And at every price point. The lower price stuff, obviously, we're still seeing sales happen, but not nearly at the brisk pace we had anticipated, or I shouldn't say anticipated, or we hoped for. Um, that higher end market, I think, took a little bit of a step back, the luxury market from where it was earlier in the year. And then when you get into that mid market, which is really that upsize market, families moving up into a bigger home, they've really dropped off. We've seen that decline in activity there, both in sales, but we have seen a pop in new listings coming on the market. So we do have a bit more of an abundance of inventory to pick from.
What's interesting though is that January, February, and March, I think we were trending right about where we'd expect to be. And then the following 2 months, as we got into spring, all the new listings hit the market, as you said. And that's what you'd expect. You'd expect to see a big month over month growth cycle in new listings in spring. And we got that. We just didn't get the sales to go with it. So, flatlined on the sales, and that's had some downward pressure on prices in some communities. Some are flat. Some, if they're up, it's only marginally, but generally flat pricing wise.
Yeah, it was again for sellers that went on the market. I had a number of properties that we listed and sold over that period. We sold for where we should have sold. There was no, we were in a couple of multiple offer situations on a few. Nothing was, dramatically blown out of the water. People were being reasonable in the pricing where they wanted to be, both in the seller side, being market priced. I don't believe in the underpriced strategy. So we were market driven in our price, and our offers coming in reflected that. We didn't have any coming in buying 100,000 over market value, nor did we have, low ball offers coming in below. So I think the people that were buying went out there with a mission in hand of what they wanted to achieve, and that's what happened. But again, we didn't have that swing that you typically see in a spring market. So obviously, we still have that retracted buyer pool out there that are still sitting on the sidelines, and they've been waiting for what we just had, 2 days ago.
Yeah, quarter point.
So, the Bank of Canada finally made an announcement after 4 years that we're dropping the rate by a quarter point. So, that leading into that, I was mixed on where I thought it was going to land. That's going to set us up, I think, for the next several months. Now, your guess is as good as mine. Is that going to materialize into lots of sales? But from my perspective, I don't believe the interest rate's going to have a huge swing in people's financials. I think you mentioned that it's about $10 per 100,000 of mortgage that it'll save. If I looked at some of the numbers you shared with me,
Yeah.
not a big difference. People saving $50, $60, $70 a month on a $500,000 mortgage is not going to change their world, nor is it going to change their qualifier. But it's the mental state that people are in that the
Yeah.
change is coming. What do you think?
Well, that's just it. It's not going to change your world monetarily, but what will happen with rate decreases is a sense of optimism and enthusiasm about the market again,
Yeah.
and more so, and frankly, that's on both sides of the coin. Buyers are going to view lower rates as an opportunity to potentially have a more attractive looking mortgage. But when all those buyers jump back in, that's more buyer activity, and that'll put upward pressure potentially on sale price, which of course sellers will be happy to hear because for the most part, they may be down depending on when they bought, or they're looking at the last 12 months or some period that's relevant to them and thinking, well, geez, we're kind of flat. It'd be nice to see some growth, and so we might get that. I don't think it'll be dramatic, and I think it'll be a relatively slow march upward in terms of pricing, just as it'll be a fairly slow march downward in terms of additional rate decreases. I don't think the Bank of Canada is going to be moving super quick on that front. And so it'll be interesting to see how this first one correlates into market activity, and then if and when the next one comes.
So, I mean, heading into the summer months now, which tend to drop off a little bit after a busy spring, you got to remember we haven't really had that pop yet for a spring market.
Right.
So I think this may bring some of those buyers forward. But what I also suspect is that we'll see an uptick in activity, but from the seller's perspective, looking for us to get back to those competing prices, you got to remember people aren't really qualifying for much more money with a quarter point drop.
No.
So they're not able to go out there and spend $100,000 more on that house that they would have done back in 2020. Their borrowing power just hasn't grown dramatically with this increase, so it's not going to help them get over. What I think it will do is, again, going back to that confidence factor, going into the summer months, we're going to see those people that haven't bought yet. I think they're going to prop up our summer, and it'll certainly be more active summer than we saw in the last 2 years, I think. But I think we'll be blended over the course of the last 6 months. The business that we didn't see take place, or the transactions we didn't see happen in the spring, just moved off to that summer market.
Well, and one thing to keep in mind, obviously, is that we've had such a big uptick in inventory without the sales to go with it, that we're starting to sit on a fairly healthy amount of inventory. And it will take, even as buyers come back, it'll take a bit of time for that to be absorbed, right?
Absolutely.
So, which I think will have a moderating effect on the price growth. I don't think it'll be dramatic. It may even be flat for the next month, potentially, but we'll see how that slices out. I just think it's a good step forward. It's a good step in the right direction. And I think a lot of buyers are going to be viewing it very positively.
Well, just to your point there about the inventory, I mean, I have some showings lined up for a client tomorrow. We're going into a market where there's only been 1 or 2 listings available at any given time. We have 6 listings lined up for showings tomorrow, all within a very tight pocket of each other, within a couple of kilometers of each other, all within a relatively close price range. And I've spoken to 4 of these 6 agents directly now, and they are all eager to get us through their house. Like, they're not seeing the sales happen yet, and they're like upselling me on those homes before we've even shown up yet. We're just booking showings. So
well, until that excess inventory starts to dissipate, I think buyers will still have a degree of choice. And as long as buyers still have choice, you won't see as much multiple offer activity until inventory is scarce.
Yeah. So I think we're in for a good summer, but I think it'll be a balanced summer. I think it's probably the best way to look at it.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it plays out, and check back in for those watching this time next month.
Yeah, sounds great, man. Let's onward and upward.
You got it. Until then, happy selling.
Take care.